Hello, friends. I'm out and about today. I took the week off work and I met my mother, who's 80, almost 81. I met her in the next town over today, and we had a little lunch at Arby's, and we went thrift shopping, and it was fun to get together with her. But I think I want to tell you about how I got into real estate and how I got into real estate as a single mom with no money, or just a working nurse's salary, basically. I grew up in basically, I spent most of my growing up years in a trailer park. My parents split up when I was 10, and we moved into a crappy trailer in a crappy trailer park, and I lived in trailers until I was 30 years old. I ended up, like I said, I got married at like 19, had my first son when I was 20, and I came from humble beginnings. I did not come from people who invested money, or no business people, nobody who knew anything about real estate or investing or any of that. And when I was 33, I had left my youngest son's father, and there was a house for sale right beside my mom, or a couple of doors over, and it had a for sale sign. It had a for sale by owner sign in the front yard, and I called the man, and he was selling it on like a rent to own deal, and with owner financing. And so it was like April. I had just gotten my tax refund. I had been saving a little bit of money, so I bought it with $7,000 down, and started making the payments. And I moved in there with my kids, and it was a small 3-bedroom house, a little small brick 3-bedroom house out in the country near my mother. And I was a nurse working night shift at the time. I was working weekend nights, and so she would keep the kids all weekend while I worked, and then I would, have my kids all during the week. And it was perfect because I started, my middle son was old enough to go into kindergarten, and I really didn't want to send him, but I did, because I lived in a kind of a bad school district, and he didn't last long before he was getting in trouble because he was just so hyper. So I pulled him out, and I decided to homeschool. So I was with my kids all week, and I worked weekend nights as a nurse, and my mom helped me with the kids on the weekends. But I had bought that house on owner financing, and a year later, I went ahead and went to the bank and got a mortgage. I had saved enough money. My credit was good enough. I got a mortgage at the local credit union that I was a member of, and I paid off that guy that had sold it on owner financing, and it was my house finally. The deed was in my name. So that was in like 2004. So in 2007, I decided to buy a house. I left the job that I was at, and I went to a job I was working the nights, weekends, and labor and delivery. But that job was like, it was a 40-minute ride to work. And I decided I wanted to buy a house in the town where I had been working. I really liked that town. I had lived there before, and it was a historic town with a lot of, it had a big historic district, small town, really charming, and I liked the people, and I was working there. So I decided that I was going to buy a house there, and I did. And instead of selling my first house, I decided to rent it out. But I didn't really want to deal with tenants. And while I had been living there, I had kind of sat up one night watching late night TV, and I saw this Carlton Sheets, if anybody knows who he is, this no money down, course. And I didn't fall prey to his, marketing and spend a bunch of money for his course, but I did find a used course with cassette tapes of his on eBay for like $50, and I bought it, and I listened to the tapes, and I started kind of getting the concepts of different ways to invest in real estate. But I still just thought, I can't do this. I'm a single woman. I can't put myself out there and pretend like I'm some kind of a guru or some kind of an expert and ask people to sell me their houses for cheap. I just can't do it. But I kind of started educating myself. I went online. I found a website called Creative Real Estate Online. It had a big message board, and I started reading that just out of interest. But I didn't really do anything. I was just too afraid. But so in 2007, I decided to buy a house in the town where I had been working, and I did. And I decided I was going to keep my house, my first house, but I was going to do a rent to own on it, like the man had done with me when I bought it. So I did like a lease option, and I got some tenants in there, and those tenants have been there. The ones that are there now have been there for 13 years, so they're hopefully going to buy the house next. That's a long story. It's been way too long. But I bought my second house and kept my first one with tenants in it. And then a year later, 2008, this is when, the market started to crash, and there were foreclosures and great deals everywhere. And there was another house in my neighborhood, and I bought that when I moved into it. It needed some work, and I made the second one a rental. So there we go. I've got 2 rental houses. Now, between 2008 and 2000, for a long time, I didn't do anything else. I just kept those rental houses. I made some bad decisions with a business opportunity, and I also made a bad decision on a choice of third husband. I'll talk about that another time also. But I didn't do any other investing. I just kept those 2 rental houses. So my first 2 rental houses were houses that I bought and lived in as my primary residence. And then when I moved on, I did not sell my houses. I kept them as rental properties. And but all these years, I was educating myself on real estate investing and just real estate in general. And I looked at real estate all the time, like, instead of watching TV or browsing social media, I'll browse Zillow. That's kind of my thing. Real estate's been my thing. So in 2021, during the pandemic, I started getting this idea and had some money in savings, and I thought, I'm going to buy a rental house. And this time I'm going to buy a house specifically for the purpose of being a rental. And that's when the market started getting a little crazy. And I tried to buy 2 houses in my neighborhood, which is a historic district, and both are cute. They were cute small houses ready to move into, and I got outbid on both of those. And then this house came up for sale on Main Street, down right a couple blocks away, and it was basically unlivable. It needed a ton of work. It had a hole in the roof and a hole in the floor. The roof had been leaking. It didn't have any HVAC. It needed rewiring. It needed all the plumbing done. It needed everything. And I was like, I'm going to make an offer. But I don't know how I'm going to afford to do all this work, but I'm going to make an offer. And I made an offer, and I bid against 4 other people who were all contractors. And I outbid them. I bid $2,000 over asking, which was still a very good deal, while the other guys had all made low ball cash offers. I did not have cash. I had a 20% down payment, but I bid on the house. They accepted my offer, and I went to a local bank to get the loan to buy it. And then while I was looking and getting estimates on how on the work that it was going to need, I realized I can't do this. This isn't something I'm going to be able to do a little bit at a time and do myself, or I'll do one thing one time and I'll save up some money and do another thing. No, that's going to take me forever because it needs a lot. So all the contractors in my town that I had asked for estimates, they had all kind of just brushed me off, because most of them were the guys that I'd outbid to begin with. It's a small town. It's a boys club, and nobody wanted to help me. Nobody wanted to give me any real estimates, and nobody wanted to guide me on how to get this project done. So I had a friend come and look at it, and he said, why don't you ask the bank about a construction loan? And I did, and because it was a small local bank, they said yes. So they gave me 80% of the purchase price plus the rehab cost. They gave me 80% of that. I brought 20% to the table, which was everything that I had. I borrowed money from my 401k. I refinanced did a cash out refi on one of my rental properties, all of my savings, everything that I had, and it totaled up to $50,000, and I took it to the closing table, and I bought that house. And then I found a contractor who was kind of new to the business, and and he wanted the exposure and he wanted the experience, so he agreed to be my contractor and help me write up the plan to give to the bank and do this project, and I did. So in 2021 I bought that house. My contractor was great, although somewhat inexperienced, and I was there every day. He wasn't, because I lived nearby. And I did it, and I turned that house into not really a duplex, because a duplex to me means it's split down the middle and it's two like comparable units. But this was a house with, it had, the way it was laid out, there was one part of the house downstairs that was easily closed off and made into an apartment, like a mother-in-law apartment. So I did that, and I rented out the big side of the house to long-term tenants, and I've been using the small side apartment. I first put it on Airbnb, and then I discovered, and I used to be a travel nurse, so I started figuring out how to market to travel nurses, and I have been using it as travel nurse housing. So I make more money on that apartment every month than I do on the 3-bedroom 2-bath house, because I rent it fully furnished with utilities and everything to travel nurses, and it's still the lowest priced furnished rental in town, but it's the most popular, and I keep it full, so I'm making a really good cash flow on that house. So now I still have my original house, my very first house. I still have that. I still have my second house, and now I have this historic property. Also, it is a historic property, and I did the historic preservation tax credits. I figured out how to do that on my own. I got contact with the state historic preservation office, and they guided me, and I did the whole 3-phase process of getting approval from the National Park Service to certify my historic rehabilitation and get my tax credits. So for the last 3 years, I haven't paid any federal or state income taxes because of those tax credits. This year I'm going to run out of federal. So that's where I'm at. They've set me up. I haven't been really great. I've kind of job hopped, and I haven't been great at funding a 401k or having a pension or anything. So those are my retirement plan, and that's how I got into real estate investing as a single mom with not a lot of money and just a regular job. That's my story, and I'm hoping that the house across the street that I bought, that I showed on another video, I'm hoping that's going to be my magnum opus, another historic preservation project. I'm not going into this blind. I know somewhat what I'm doing. I've done it before. It's just the big one. It's a big one, and it's going to take a lot of money. So whether I do it or whether I sell it and cut my losses, I'll figure that out. But I just wanted to let you know that's where I've been with my real estate journey, and that's not even counting the real estate license and being a real estate agent. But that's my real estate investing journey so far, and that's where I'm at. I would love to answer questions. I do think that there's opportunity out there for just about anybody to get into real estate investing, and I would love to help, especially women and single women and people who came from people who don't have family money, and people who think that they can't do it. I would love to help you figure out a way to do it. It might not, it's not going to be fast, and it's not going to be, you might not be a millionaire in 5 years, but it's definitely the slow way to build wealth, and I would love to help you. So if you have questions, drop them in the comments. Thank you for being here.